our identity, our self-concept is really the basis for everything. If we don't believe that we are capable of achieving what we want to achieve, there is no way we will. Even if outwardly we do have that option, we do have that possibility, if we don't believe we can, then we won't. Welcome to Identity Evolution, the podcast where we explore the moments that shape who we become. I'm your host, Lorena Schuth, somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I'm here to guide you through the raw, real, and transformative stories of reinvention. From solo reflections to powerful interviews, this space is your invitation to evolve into who you've always wanted to be. So welcome to our very first episode. The first episode is just a bit of an introduction. I just want to tell you what you can expect for this podcast. So it's going to be a solo episode, no guest today, but I've got some incredible interviews lined up. So stay tuned and definitely make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that already. So this podcast has honestly been a year in the making. The concept for it and the inspiration for it came through for me about a year ago, and I've always loved podcasting. I had a podcast in the past together with a friend, and I've wanted to do it again for a while because there are just so many incredible people out there, and my work revolves all around changing your self-concept, becoming who you always wanted to be, shifting your identity. It's a death, it's a rebirth. And I think we can all relate to that. We all have stories that shaped who we are today, and we all want to evolve into who we will be in the future. We have an idea, we have a vision of who our future self could hopefully be. And I truly hope that this podcast will inspire you to become the best version of yourself and to give you some insights and also make you feel supported, because not all of these stories that you'll hear in these episodes will be stories of success and everything going smoothly. In fact, a lot of the stories will probably be stories of failure and things not going so well, and how you can even use the hard parts of life in order for you to become who you want to be. So yeah, I've wanted to do another podcast for a while, but I really waited for something good to come through. I didn't want to do a podcast just for the sake of doing a podcast. I didn't really want the pressure of it, to be honest, and I also didn't really want to do it alone. Because if you know my other content, I am on a lot of different platforms. I am currently a one-woman show, so I do encourage you to check out my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Lorena Schuth, and also some other platforms like Instagram and TikTok. I'm pretty much everywhere. Also, this will happen a lot if you can hear the siren, because usually my YouTube videos, I cut them all out if you follow me on YouTube, but this podcast is going to be a lot more raw, so this will happen sometimes, and we're just gonna work with it. Yeah, I really want this space to be like very much not polished and very raw and real. And so I was waiting for something to come through to see, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be kind of thing. And one day the concept just came through like a light bulb, and I got this feeling of, you have to do this. You just have to do this. And I love listening to podcasts, and I personally enjoy them most when it's conversations, when it's a flow between two people. And so that's what this is going to be too. Today you get a solo, but for the most part, I want this to be interviews, except the occasional stories of my own identity shifts. Which brings me to the reason for the name Identity Evolution and what that means to me, and also why I created this, and what you can really expect in it. So Identity Evolution is a name that's really dear to my heart. My work revolves all around, as I said, changing your self-concept, evolving into newer and newer versions of yourself, which is something that we tend to naturally do throughout our lives, right? We have experiences, good and bad. We meet people who shape us. We go through heartbreak, and we go through trauma, and we also have incredible experiences. And so everything that we experience kind of shapes who we become. And sometimes that plays out to our advantage. Other times it doesn't serve us so well, right? And sometimes we have experiences that seemingly break us. And then it's our choice whether we rebuild ourselves from that, or whether, we let that keep us on the floor, which, if that's the case for you, it's okay. I think we can all agree that sometimes life is just not very easy, and sometimes we just stay on the floor, on the ground, a little longer than we would like the strength to have and to get back up. But we're always evolving our identity very naturally. But I also think our destiny is in our own hands, and I believe that we can all truly become whoever we want to become. And that can sound a bit cheesy. It can sound a bit like you can be anything you want to be. But what I really mean is that if you have a dream, if you have a vision for your life, if you can feel an inkling as to who you could be, the life you could lead, then that's yours to have. And often the only thing that's stopping us is our own perceived limitations. And therefore, evolving our identity, our self-concept is really the basis for everything. If we don't believe that we are capable of achieving what we want to achieve, there is no way we will. Even if outwardly we do have that option, we do have that possibility, if we don't believe we can, then we won't, right? So I'm very passionate about self-concept, rebirth, identity shifts. But the reason I called it identity evolution is because very rarely does our identity just shift. Very rarely do we have an experience that just completely, we might have an experience that completely disrupts our life. We might discover a modality or a program or a process that completely changes who we are. But never really does that happen overnight. The impact of something might happen overnight, but the actual creation of a new identity, the actual embodiment of a new self-concept, the actual becoming, that's a process. That is a process. That's an evolution. That doesn't happen overnight. And so that's why I called it identity evolution. And that's why I wanted to create this, right? I'm also quite passionate about it because it's, I feel like this is going to be my baby. I already have a baby. I have a coaching program called Recreate Yourself, which is deep transformational work. But, this is also going to be my baby. And this is more of a spacious, story-led invitation into those themes that I teach without the coaching container. So it's going to be a really nice entry point for you into my work, and to just hear from real people, how they shifted their identity, whether that's intentionally or not. And it's going to be a place to share stories and experiences, both my own, that might be a bit more lighthearted, maybe a bit more vulnerable than I normally share them on my other platforms. Because, podcasting is just a lot more vulnerable and raw and real like that. And usually I tend to only share vulnerable things in my coaching container. So I think I'm really excited to have a space where I get to share with just, anyone who wants to listen, really. Because, life is doing life things, and it still is. I have some solo stories for you to share, for you to hear soon as well. Because, sometimes life just throws you some curveballs, and then you get to choose what you do with it, right? Whether you let it break you or you let it expand you. So it's going to be about the messy, raw in between, and not just the success at the end. But when you actually use what life gives you, even if it's a challenge, then it can be an expansion. It can be a success in the end. And we will have some stories here that might be triggering for people, right? We might have some stories where some of my guests had an experience where who they thought they were completely shifted because of a negative experience they had, because of a traumatic experience they had. So we are probably going to talk about trauma a lot on this podcast. I will make a point of always giving a trigger warning depending on the topic. And probably you will see it in the title anyway, but I'm just, letting you know ahead of time. But I also think it's important to emphasize, and, we're going to emphasize this throughout the episodes, but I want to say it here right now as well, that we don't always need a trigger for us to change our identity, to change who we want to become, to change our self-concept. We can also do it intentionally. We can do it just because we want to. And we don't always need something external in order for this to happen and become possible. My intention for this is really to inspire you, to show you what's possible, to show you that no matter what experiences you had in the past, nothing has to hold you back. This is not me invalidating your experiences or saying it's not that bad when maybe really it is bad. But wherever you are right now, I don't care. I'm not saying I don't care from I don't care about you, because, your experience is valid, your feelings about it are valid, but that's your starting point. And just because you are where you are or you came from where you came from doesn't mean that can't change unless you create the limitation by saying it's impossible for you to change it. So I'm excited. We've got some stories lined up from industry experts, right? We will hear about some powerful modalities that maybe you have not heard of or you haven't heard of in this light or context. We will have stories from people from all walks of life who had impactful experiences that fundamentally changed who they are. These will be raw stories that could have broken people, but instead expanded them and helped them evolve. And we will also get some stories from me. So those will kind of be my own solo casts, my own stories that, as I said, are more intimate and vulnerable than anywhere else. And I've already pre-recorded some interviews and some solo episodes, so definitely stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning in to Identity Evolution. We're going to keep this short and sweet today. And if today's episode made you curious, then make sure to hit subscribe. Leave a review. Reviews are really important, especially on Spotify. You can now leave ratings, and on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a rating and a review. These are really helpful for a podcast to grow and be seen. And even though we're just at the beginning, there's so much more to come. So please leave a review and a rating, and share it with someone on their own reinvention journey. You can also download my free self-concept mastery blueprint. You get a daily checklist with that as well. And then you can start reshaping your life. That is linked in the show notes. This is your rebirth into the version of you that has been waiting for you to step into her. I'll see you in the next episode.